Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Harakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great most under the well. Shalom to the brothers who want to in truth. Just got a quick lesson on really. Hey, whilst we're out here, man, Jake is in a broken, fallen state, and that's something that is ironic because the way modern culture is, you kind of assume that's just how Jake has been for all time. But really, it's something new, something brand new. And there's something especially that the heathen are not ignorant of. They've been aware of, Jake being in a fallen state. As mentioned in Revelation, what, whilst Jake was bound up, the heathen they celebrated. Because why? Because the two prophets, they caused everyone else. Jake was basically getting on everyone else. Let me read this. I'll start with this. Proverbs 12:26. The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. And that's really the baseline. Jake was set up as what? They're a representation of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua upon the earth, man. They're a representation of the invisible power. And their role is what? To be, that shining example of, following after the laws, basically being, righteous. And that's something that they failed at repeatedly, time after time. And what? When they fell short, then the Lord basically had to deal with them in a certain kind of way. Which is what? Various of the curses. And that's kind of where you get the dichotomy between Jake, where you have them where they're meant to be, that righteous shining example, but then what? As well, the way the wicked seduces them. So then they also, produce wickedness on legendary levels as well. So Deuteronomy 28 and 28 and 36. So it says, the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. So you got to the first verse mentions what? If you follow these laws, you'll get all these blessings. Then the 15th verse says what? If you break these laws, then you'll get these curses. And you'll find that the curses are far more extensive than the blessings. Because why? They're more they track more with the story, the narrative, basically of what Jake's been doing on the face of the earth. Because by and large, a big part of what Jake has done is they'll follow after the Most High for a season, then they'll fall short, they'll start worshipping other gods, they'll start doing other forms of madness, then they'll get punished. Then through the punishment, they'll then turn back. So that's why what the curse is more extensive, because Jake is going to spend more time going off than in a form of the state of righteousness. So that says what which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord Yahweh shall lead thee. So yeah, Jake basically becoming what? That astonishment, that byword, basically becoming, a poor reflection of who they're truly meant to be, based upon what? Their unrighteous state. And that's something that's been fortified more and more, essentially, with, like, the modern times is the clearest example. You have what? You have black culture. And that's something that's a legendarily destructive method of maintaining Jake being that destroyed state. Because when you look at black culture, that's something that's brand new. That's hella new. And that's something that all this serves as is essentially disconnecting disconnecting Jake from their roots and their heritage, rather than them understanding, viewing themselves as Israelite. They're looking at themselves as black, rather than thinking they go back to, the land of Israel, they go back thousands of years. They can only look back a couple hundred years to being either in Africa or in captivity. So then their root, their origin is already destroyed. So it's something where it maintains, that bugged out state. So Hosea 8:8, it says, "What Israel is swallowed up, now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure." So yeah, that's really the state Jake's been in. That vessel wherein is no pleasure, where they're not even an Israelite. They're just looked at as a black. And then being a black, then it's what kind of value or worth does it hold? As some form of entertainer, some form of athlete. There's no kind of expectations of them being on any kind of moral character or any kind of wisdom or whatever. They're really looked at as entertainment, dancing, singing, whatever, athletic performance, and that's that keeps them in a dumbed down state. And as well, it builds a cycle of what Jake chasing after some form of fame, because other than those capabilities, everything else they really look at, they're just looking at it like, they're just in ghettos, being ratchet, being ghettos, fuck. They can't speak English, they can't, they don't know how to conduct themselves. They're basically moving like criminals. But, it's through the spirit. But it's something that's really been set up. It's something that was pulled off by design. Because Judith 5 and 16 says what? "And they cast forth before them the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite, the Shechemite, and all the Girgazites, and they dwelt in that country many days." And then, this is basically what I believe it's a Moab, no, I think it's an Ammonite, hearing from a Moabite. Oh no, it's a Ammonite speaking to the prince of Moab. About Jake. So it says what? "And whilst they sinned not, because their power, before their power, they prospered, because the power that hateth iniquity was with them. But when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs. And the temple of their power was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by the enemies." So they know that this is something that all the heathen research, they all know. They know that when Jake's serving Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, when they're keeping the laws, when they're staying righteous, the heathen can't do anything against them. Whereas when what? It says what? But when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs. And the temple of their power was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by the enemies. It says what? But now are they returned to their power, and have come up from the places where they were scattered, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and all seated in the hill country, for it is desolate. Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against his people, and they sin against their power, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. So they set up the scheme. They know essentially, okay, the moment we're going to have to strike is when what? When they've sinned against their power. So, this is what Revelation 11 and 9. It's up 8. It says what? "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them and dwelt on the earth. So yeah, because Jake was that shining example of righteousness, and they what? They delivered the message of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua onto the earth. Then what? That's why all these nations were upset. They had a bone to pick with Jake because why? One, when Jake was in righteousness, they were ruling over the heathen. And then two as well, because these guys are getting cursed out and they're seeing what? The capabilities of what Jake can do. And they'll hate him. That's why when Jake was in that destroyed state, they made merry. This. Lamentations 4:1, it says what? How has the gold become dim? How has the most fine gold changed? The stones of the sanctuary are poured out on the top of every street. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold. How are they esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter? So yeah, Jake out here esteemed as earthen pitchers when they were once fine gold. Because that's how far they've fallen, and that's what, you know, how comparable the state is of being in that righteous form to being completely, you know, degenerated. And it's something you don't even need to look far. When you look at just black culture, how Jacob conducts themselves in the Americas chiefly, but all over the globe, by and large, we've got a lot of complete and total madness going down. Every kind of role, every form of governance has been done away with, man. Jacob destroyed. But that's not, you know, as far as for how that's going to run. We read this, Jeremiah 30:4, and it says, and these are the words that the Lord Yahweh spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. Oh, actually, no, so let me start from verse 7. So it says, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, that will break his yoke from off thy neck, shall burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of it. But they shall serve the Lord Yahweh, their power, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O servant Jacob, saith the Lord Yahweh, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. So whilst we're cast out, we're also going to be returned. And it's mainly through what? Through the elect. They're the ones that are going to return. They're the ones that are basically going to build back up that house. You're going to have all the 12 tribes come back together and build up that house of David and then be established. And like I said, will no more be served with the heathen. So I'll finish on this. Revelation 2:25. But that which ye have already, hold fast till I come, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I have received of my Father. So just like now, Yahweh is sitting on the right hand of the Most High, and is waiting to receive his kingdom, just as he's received the rulership, those are the elect first going to receive that rulership. Then afterwards, you know, 2/3 as well, coming through the line of the elect, they'll receive it as well. And then Jacob will be set up in a state where what? They're no longer going to be taken down. But for now is the time where you're going to have a portion of Jake where they're never going to come to the truth. So yeah, I'll leave that. Shalom. Yahweh Shem Yahshua.